The consensus that we are getting from the different political parties in the opposition benches, of course, is that there is no provision in law for the Speaker to take special leave. And of course, what the DA has in turn done is that the party has tabled a motion of no confidence in the Speaker, and that motion has been tabled to the Deputy Speaker, Mr. Lichisa Tsinodi, given the conflict that the Speaker would have if she had to accept or take that motion of no confidence. Of course, we await the decision of the Deputy Speaker to see whether he will accede to that motion, and whether, if he does accede to that motion, to hear when that motion will be heard. Of course, the other issue that is being raised by the opposition parties is that they are advising the Speaker to resign or face this motion of no confidence. Of course, we are taking reactions right here in the precinct of Parliament. Interested parties are also here. We take now COSATU's national spokesperson, Matthew Parks. Thank you so much for your time. What do you make of this imminent arrest of the National Assembly Speaker?
Look, it's quite worrying. The charges what we've seen in the media are extremely worrying, serious levels of corruption. And of course, it doesn't come against a vacuum. We've gone through a decade of state capture and corruption. Workers have paid the price in terms of the state bleeding money and the general economic climate. So it's quite worrying. The Speaker is an important position in our constitution. It's not a position we must take lightly, and it's very worrying if a Speaker has this kind of clouds hanging over her head. We do appreciate that we live in a constitutional democracy where people are innocent until proven guilty, and she has yet to be charged. So it's a difficult thing. It doesn't help when we've got a history of the law enforcement agency charging politicians and they're not taking them to court either. So it's a mess, to be honest. We think the ANC policy is quite clear. If you've been charged, you must step aside. So the minute she's charged, it's clear she must go. But we also want to say that we've had a history of these things taking time. We have 8 weeks until elections. The Parliament is nearly concluding with its work. Surely she can do the right thing and just simply spare all of us. Spare the ANC, spare Parliament, spare an exhausted country of this circus, this drama, this soap opera. We don't need to see a flurry of press statements from her office. It would be best that she'd actually just spare all of us and just call it a day. She's done a bit for the country over many years, many decades, but we just can't afford to have the Speaker, one of the most senior positions in the country, with this kind of cloud hanging over their head. We shouldn't be hiding upon niceties or legalities. She should rather just say, I've got the serious charges, they'll come when they come, let me go and focus on cleaning my name, but spare all of us this circus. And there are people who've done that before, so we want to appeal to her conscience to just call it a day and spare the nation's kind of theatrics.
Do you think there is merit in her argument, in her affidavit, that says that the criminal justice system is being abused for political ends?
Look, we've seen countless politicians who've clung into that very, very thin string. And look, she's got the right to fight for her innocence, to prove herself, but can she do it on her own spare time? It should not be based upon taxpayers subsidizing her salary and she embarrassing all of us with this theatrics. She should rather just do it on her own time, and we wish her on that journey. But it should not be on the expense of the nation or Parliament or the ANC. We really can be afforded to be spared of this thing. But I think what's a positive thing is that we're now beginning to see South Africa's political establishment being cleaned up. We've had for too long politicians who've embarrassed the country, who've helped themselves to public funds, who've just abused the Constitution, and all of us. So it's a positive thing with the NPA, and if this is happening, then it's positive that they're holding the most senior person in the country accountable, because that's how we're going to clean not just the ANC and renew it, which we want to do, but also clean society, clean the government. We should really build a sense of accountability, so that's a positive thing. It's positive that she said that she wants to take special leave, but we think there is, in law, there's no such thing as special leave. Under the Basic Conditions Employment Act, there's annual leave, there's sick leave. There's no special leave for persons who are caught in trouble because they are politicians. So the best thing is just spare all of us a drama and just call it a day.
Without going into the merits of the allegations or the charges that are pending against the Speaker, how do you think Parliament, as a lawmaking institution, can regulate what MPs are actually doing in their official duties? Like, she was the Minister of Defence, now she's getting black bags of money which are not accounted for in the banking system. How can we regulate that space?
Yeah. Look, so again, I want to say this, the constitutional premise is that you're innocent until proven guilty. She hasn't been charged yet, but let's assume that it will go that route, and the indications are likely. It's a difficult thing because how do you police black bags or brown envelopes, whatever the story is? And most people who take bribes will do so in a way which is difficult to trace. But one critical thing is, which government committed to doing so, we don't think they've done it sufficiently by any stretch of the imagination, is to conduct lifestyle audits. The South African Revenue Service should be tasked specifically to conduct routine lifestyle audits of anybody holding office, whether it's national, provincial, local government, or even the state-owned enterprises, because we have just seen how endemic crime and corruption has become across our body politic, and really SARS is the best institution to do so, or to enlist the Special Investigations Unit, the SAU. But it shouldn't be an ad hoc thing where the President then says, please do this. It should be a standard annual requirement. That's the best way to try to minimize the corruption. You're not always going to block it completely, but Parliament, to be honest, has been far too soft, and perhaps it's a bit of asking the foxes to guard the foxes, not going to work out. So that's why it's critical, because you just leave it to the Ethics Committee in Parliament. The track record is weak, to be honest, and again, they're policing the colleagues. It's never going to work. Better to get external independent agencies like the SARS, like the SAU, to do it, and to do it on a systematic basis, not based upon headlines, not based upon factions or friendship. All politicians should be subject to this, and also the immediate families, the senior leadership of the state-owned enterprises too, because politicians are also clever, like any other person, will say, okay, if you're going to check me, let me give this to my spouse, or let me give it to my child. And we just can't afford to continue to normalize corruption in South Africa.
Lastly, the Speaker is also facing the Powers and Privileges Committee in relation to the allegation that she unilaterally hiked the salary of the Secretary to Parliament, Mr. Xolile George. Given the two allegations that are serious that she is facing, how does that damage the integrity of the institution?
No, it does huge damage. She doesn't have the personal power to fiddle with the Secretary of Parliament's salary. There's an organogram, there's established human resource procedures. Our affiliate Naha, which organized at Parliament, has raised that issue. It's a huge problem because the Parliament was told the Secretary is being appointed this salary. Next thing, was surprised, he gets very nice increases. The very same politicians have cried blue murder about public servants, nurses and teachers, just wanting an inflation increase. Yet somehow we have sympathy for very senior management to receive salaries which a nurse wouldn't receive for 5 years in a single year. So we think it is a huge problem. We do hope Parliament shows some sort of spine to hold its leadership accountable, because we've really seen that Parliament over the years has just been flip-flopping left and right when it comes to holding its leadership accountable, and not just amongst the Parliament itself, but also, as you're saying, the executive too, because Parliament is meant to hold ministers accountable. If there's a question against them, they should be holding them. And what is on this issue, the Defence Committee was nowhere to be seen, because these issues were also raised when she was Minister of Defence, and they were brushed under the carpet, and the consequences were allowing corruption to become normalised. And there's a huge consequence to workers when government can't afford to pay salaries, when public services, there's not enough money to fund them, and of course when investors just simply write us off as not being serious.
All right, thank you so much, Matthew Parks. He is the national spokesperson for the Labour Federation, COSATU.